The other thing I wanted to talk about, particularly for anybody who's listening who may be undertaking either a master's program or a PGCE level 7 assessment, is the notion of research paradigms. So if we scroll back up, it's really important to see here in the structure where we sit with research paradigms, because what's great about this is that we've got research tools at the very end. And I like your metaphor of the carpenter. This is where, does the carpenter use the saw or the tape measure or the plane? Because actually when we're building, a chest of drawers or a table, we know what the outcome is, but there's different ways of creating it, isn't it?
Yes.
So they're the actual tools, but we've also got research design, and that's about, are we going to undertake a case study? Are we doing experimental, quasi-experimental pre and post test approach? Are we going to undertake post action research? But above that is that whole notion of research paradigm around whether or not it's positivistic, / scientific, or if it's going to be more interpretivist and take a more qualitative approach.
Yes.
So I just wondered if you wanted to say anything about research paradigms in relation to your guide.
Yes, this touches a little bit on them. It's an area that I will develop, I think, a little bit more in the future. Now, if we take a step back a little bit, this is quite interesting. Now, when you meet researchers and you meet people who write research methods books, it's quite interesting because people are often very determined and very definite about the way that you should collect data. And this all stems back to what you believe about what evidence and what truth is actually important and what is believable and what isn't. And so if you are quite positivist and you believe in a kind of experimental approaches and collecting lots of data, and it's you would then move down the path of collecting survey data maybe, and have to have big numbers. Now there's lots of in medicine, this is quite interesting, there's lots of quantitative research being carried out in the past, with massive studies. And it's very interesting that in the realm of medicine now, researchers seem to be moving towards a more qualitative approach in lots of cases, because what they were finding was they were gathering loads and loads of evidence, and it was giving them insights into, if I do this, then that happens. But somehow they were missing out the actual student and the experience of the patient. So the patient experience was missed out in the middle. So this is almost like that idea, Sarah, that you were just mentioning about the being done to. So all these patients are having stuff done to them, but nobody knew why. For example, if in a trial, people weren't taking particular tablets, it wasn't carrying on particularly well, nobody knew why. So they realized that it's actually much more powerful if you talk to the patients and ask for their views on things. So it's quite interesting. So there's actually a shift at the minute in medical research away from just collecting large amounts of data and this quantitative approach to a qualitative approach where you start to talk to people and gain insight. So can you see there's this idea of, so if you look at the research literature, there's this idea of ontology. So the ontology bit is the nature of truth and what you believe is actually really true and what matters with regard to knowledge. And then that impacts on this other big word that is epistemology. So in other words, that impacts on what you then do to actually find stuff out. So if you believe that only large amounts of data collected, from these randomized controlled trials actually matter, that then impacts on the way you will collect your data. So actually these things are quite important. Don't be worried or put off by them though, because these things develop and emerge as you go on. But it's quite important to sort of have a view that these do exist. There's a little bit in the guide about it, but I will enhance that. And I think perhaps, Sarah, a good thing to do with that would be perhaps just a quick talk, perhaps, I don't know if we can link to videos within the guides.
Yeah.
So it would be less, perhaps, dare I say, less boring than reading like a large amount of text about ontology and epistemology.
Yes. We warmly welcome moving to a more multimodal, multimedia approach. So for these boxes, if you want to link to any relevant videos or podcasts or anything, it's absolutely fine. The other thing I was going to say was, because epistemology and ontology does underpin the different paradigms. And we have, you know, on the one continuum, science, which is all about objective understanding of reality and that it can be objectively measured, and social science, which is much more interpretivist and based on qualitative work around, well, it's about the meanings that we bring to understand reality. We've also got this middle ground, haven't we, which is what you've been talking about, which is the pragmatic paradigm. And that pragmatic paradigm is moving to that mixed methods approach. And I think that's also really helpful, isn't it, when we want to get research data that may be able to speak more in depth around meaning, but also at the same time have the quantitative work to give us the pattern, so we know why we're looking at something in particular and want to explain a pattern.
Yes, so you're getting insights from different views. Now, some people are quite concerned about doing that and mixing methods together and bringing things from different paradigms. But there does seem to be a shift now in the literature towards that, where people are willing to kind of engage with different types of data, because in the end, if it gives you more insights that are useful to moving practice forward, then it can't be a bad thing, I don't think.